What is up, my fellow Tarhans? I'm Captain Beans, and welcome to HighFleet Flight to Hara Vera. And here's how I flew to Hara Vera so that you didn't have to. Exarchy of Hara Vera, 2144 hours. The rebel official has beheaded the Archbishop. We have taken refuge inside the monastery. Send help. Now this message right here will be very important. Keep this one in mind until the end of the video. And so here is how it starts. We, as Prince Teres, son of the Trax, get greeted by a young lieutenant called Anton, who tells us that we should get going. And so we did. One thing that I immediately notice is that the screen on the radar is green. That's a nice touch. And the terrain around us is no longer an arid desert, but beautiful green Balkan mountains. And even my ships have a completely different look, which personally I find that a lot more attractive than some of the vanilla ships over there. And so from all of that and all of the visuals that we see in Flight to Hara Vera, I give it a solid 10 out of 10. When we landed at Getsemane, we met an old man of royal significance who had at some point faked his death. Apparently he was hanged 1 year ago, but he tells us that he needs to join us because it is for our grandfather's sake, and that we must get to Hara Vera and see what is inside of that monastery. Not knowing very much, I decided to let him into the Beans Navy. And then we fought our way to a town called Sarmosa, where we got our first taste of combat. One thing that I did notice is that the 57mm guns on my Navarans shoot at a much higher fire rate than vanilla game. Nice. And also each time we kill an enemy, the crew of our ship literally cheers. Yes! After waiting for our fleet to refuel and for daylight to come, we then set course to Eudaimon, where we fought another rather easy garrison. This town is where we met Bastakos, otherwise known as Fat Prigozhin, a wealthy merchant who used to be a diplomat for the Romani Empire, and he also had a noble title. After having a brief discussion with him, he convinced me to let him join our fleet. And shortly after that interaction, we got a telegram from our Grandmaster Jarkil, whoever that is, that we will rendezvous at Pyrrhicia. He tells us to move in advance. Do not try to impress me. And so we did. In the Battle of Pyrrhicia, I got quite comfortable with a new ship in our fleet called the Grasshopper. Otherwise, it's just a redesign of the Gladiator, nothing special. But this thing did absolutely bonk that enemy garrison. We then met the Grandmaster Jarkil himself, who was to become second in command of the Beans Navy. He argues that our expedition to Hara Vera is futile, but he still reluctantly abides to join us. And that is when our next mission is to liberate Odomantis. And so we did. But first, we intercepted a message sent by an enemy strike group. They say that they are heading to a town called Visna. And so, knowing this, we go around them and onwards into Odomantis. Fast forward, we are now in Odomantis, a town that welcomes our fleet and wishes us all of the best of luck in our endeavors. That is where the prologue ends and the real flight to Hara Vera begins.
Alright, Beans Navy, listen up. We have officially arrived at Odomantis and we are about to begin our operation in Thracia. Our objective is to reach the city of Hara Vera, save the monastery, and kick some rebel ass. And so, all hands aloft, all officers to their posts, and all leadership come to the bridge.
Starting our expedition into Hara Vera, I assemble our fleet of really good-looking ships. One of the ships, in fact, would actually become one of my favorites throughout the entire campaign, and it is the Myrkinos, which is the redesign of the Lightning. This ship, in my humble opinion, has to be one of the best ships ever designed in HighFleet, and kudos to Shieldbearer for designing this ship, because it is actually good. But jokes aside, let's begin our expedition to Hara Vera. And so we do. When we got to take a look at the strategic map for the first time, I decided to make a mental note to myself to liberate all of the neighboring cities around Hara Vera once we reach there. But I realized that we have quite a bit of work to do and an entire campaign to finish, so I decided to go ahead and just start the campaign. The early game garrisons were really easy pickings for the Merkinos class interceptors. In fact, so much so that the Shieldbearer had to reach out to me in order to fix my save file. Keep in mind that I had an older patch of Flight to Hara Vera with some bugs and glitches here and there. And so my save file had to be fixed by the creator of the mod multiple times. And you know what? I appreciate the fact that even the Shieldbearer decided to even reach out to me. And so, after defeating the first garrison and asserting ourselves as true believers of Ishu, and declining to partake in superstitious and heretical activities, we moved on with our campaign. As we fought more garrisons and liberated more towns, we met a lot of different allies whom we told about our expedition and convinced them to join us. Some of these allies in fact would prove to be quite important for the story later on. We first met Admiral Stefan, one of our own admirals who at some point suffered a catastrophic defeat in one of the previous campaigns in Thracia. He had a ship called the Odysseus, which was a very mighty ship that in fact was actually pretty good at clapping strike groups' cheeks. Strike groups, by the way, in Flight to Hara Vera are an actual menace. And the reason is because as soon as you get reported, these strike groups will absolutely buttfuck your fleet with cruise missiles, cruise missiles, cruise missiles, cruise missiles, maybe planes, cruise missiles, which they have a lot of. Unlike that silly typhoon right there. I mean, look at that. Bah. And if there are any other strike groups or tactical groups in the area, they too will send all of their missiles and planes into your fleet and will fuck you up. I think I would describe the strategic gameplay of Flight to Hara Vera as stumbling right into a giant hornet's nest full of very angry and explosive hornets. Anyway, moving on, we then met Sven, the wharf master. He was a pretty interesting fellow who had a ship called the Republica, a gigantic cruiser with a whole bunch of aircraft up aloft. As good as this ship looks and feels, it didn't really survive very long in the Beans Navy because eventually I just sold it for a shitload of money, which, now that I think about it, was probably a pretty big mistake that led to many other mistakes in the long run. We eventually reach our first fleet headquarters, or I guess in Flight to Hara Vera they're called Rebel Strongholds, but okay, where we in fact don't get any nuclear missiles. Instead, we get a whole bunch of rare modules, or pieces of repair for your ships. Now, why don't we get any nukes in an actual campaign in Flight to Hara Vera? I have no idea. I like to think that it's because the Shieldbearer knew that I finished HighFleet by committing war crimes, and so I think he just wanted to play a joke on me. I don't know, that's what I think it is, and I don't think I can be convinced otherwise. At some point in the campaign, we reached a town called Lepenak, where we got ambushed by the local militia on our way to meet their Zupan, or town mayor. Angered by this display of rudeness, I ordered the town to be completely ravaged and for all of the rebels to be killed, which did reduce the chances of any other cities reporting us to the enemy. Very nice. After leading some of the other strike groups away from our main fleet in a wild goose chase, we eventually meet Father Anastasius, who is in charge of a group of monks in hiding. Naturally, I convinced the monks to join our holy mission. He then told us where to find the next possible ally to add to our collection. And so we did. We came across a clan of nomadic corsairs led by a Captain Alexander and convinced them to join the fleet too. Nothing quite like hiring pirates into the Beans Navy. We then also stumbled into quite a big problem. After we fought the garrison of a town called Rozance, seeing as how we absolutely wrecked the enemy ship's asses. A whole army stationed on the ground in the city surrendered to us, and we had way too many prisoners of war to deal with. Luckily, that problem was easily remedied. At this point, we were close to the middle of the journey to Hara Vera, when I made one of the dumbest and biggest mistakes ever. I captured a cargo convoy. And even though the cargo itself was easy pickings, what happened afterwards was quite, alarming. A strike group, which was nearby, launched a barrage of cruise missiles at our small ships, nearly killing a Myrkinos and fully killing the Centaur. Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard so many thermal signature detected in my entire life at this point. Also, just FYI, cruise missiles in Flight to Hara Vera are way faster than they are in the vanilla game. After being absolutely ass-railed by that strike group, we showed them what we were really made of, and quickly put them all to sleep, only slightly damaging a Sava in the process. Now, my ships after that battle were pretty damaged, and so I thought the best recovery from an offensive on a strike group is another offensive on another strike group. And so we did. Fast forward, we lose a whole bunch of ships because of the hornet's nest that is mid-game Flight to Hara Vera. And we also stay idle in the mountains. And the reason is because there was a strike group located in the town of Paravar, which is the exact town that we needed to liberate in order to save more allies. And so, naturally, me being Captain Beans, I gave the order to go in balls deep. That's my style, sir. And absolutely destroy that strike group. Bracing the impact of cruise missiles, as usual, we liberated the town of Paravar from the strike group and from the garrison that was guarding it. And once we did, we were greeted by another clan. This time, this clan was led by a lady, who for some reason makes my men feel uncomfortable around her, and she finds pleasure in that. I don't know, guys, all I'm saying is... Febe Kassani, the lady in question, joined the Beans Navy wholeheartedly, and then we moved on. Shortly after, some locals complained about the damage done to an important church in their town. Me being the most staunch believer in Ishu and her might, I gave them some reparations to help them repair their church. And from all of these events that we have experienced so far, and from all of the events that we have experienced throughout the campaign of Hara Vera, I can safely say that events and things like that are a solid 10 out of 10. Because these events that we've experienced are actually something that would happen if you were leading a special military peacekeeping operation. We then invited another ally into the fleet. This time it is an unusual figure who doesn't show his face or reveal his name, but who gives a shit. Fast forward, we were about 75% of the way to Hara Vera when we hired a former enemy of the Romani Empire to join us. Now, initially the guy didn't really want to join us, but the Beans Navy always finds a way. Fast forward, we intercepted an ominous distress signal calling us for help. It was a ship stranded in the mountains about to get attacked by pirates. When I eventually got my fat ass over there, it was too late. The ship was nothing but rubble. Closer to the end of the campaign, I was preparing to fight another strike group, and I was using an aircraft to do some aerial reconnaissance. That's when this happened. Wait, what? Guys, did you see that? Feeling celebratory, we then attended a dinner at a loyal Zupan's place. My subordinates proceeded to slander me for my previous actions, and Alexander pulled me aside after the dinner. he suggested that we both stop fighting for the dying Romani Empire and instead forge our own path ahead to overthrow our own dynasty. To which I told him to fuck off. And so he did. We then found the guy who was responsible for beheading the Archbishop of the Monastery of Hara Vera. Do you guys remember this that I've just shown you before? That's the guy from there. And before he could finish his monologue, Grandmaster Jarkil fucking shoots him. Based? And no longer having to deal with this mess, all we had left to do was to liberate all of the towns around Hara Vera and the town of Hara Vera itself. And so we did. It was a grueling and a painful experience, constantly being bombarded with missiles, planes, and even a strike group that was chasing us. We lost a bunch of ships that otherwise survived for a pretty surprisingly long time. But eventually, we did kick the strike group's collective asses and encircled Hara Vera. We fought the final battle at Hara Vera, defeated the mighty Memnon, and all that was left to do was to climb up the treacherous goat path into the monastery. And so we did. I got the full experience of gameplay with this mod at that point, and I have to say that it's a lot more challenging than vanilla game. But I do have pretty mixed opinions on the gameplay of Hara Vera. On one hand, I really do enjoy the fact that Flight to Hara Vera always makes you stay on your feet at all times, especially when there are many different strike groups, tactical groups, aircraft carrier groups, garrisons and stuff like that, which send all of their missiles and planes after you and things like that. I also really do enjoy the ships that Flight to Hara Vera has to offer and the paint schemes that come with them. In my humble opinion, the stock ships of Flight to Hara Vera are superior to the stock ships of the vanilla game, and also the new guns and modules did make designing ships more fun and diverse, and also the guns, components and stuff like that are also pretty well balanced. So good job, shield bearer. But on the other hand, from my experience, using our own cruise missiles to fight strike groups and so on proved to be quite futile. And that's because many strike groups had way too many R9 sprint missiles and also missile defense, making them damn near impossible to kill them with strategical assets. And also, even a garrison ship, for some reason, had intercepted all of my cruise missiles every single time. Why? Telemachus, why are you so overpowered? It's insane. Shieldbearer, what the fuck did you do? And so, for all of the reasons that I've mentioned above, I'm putting 7 out of 10 for gameplay. It's not perfect, but it is an improvement from vanilla game. And so, what about the monastery? In Flight to Hara Vera, there are 2 different endings to this mod, unlike the original game. The ending that I got in my playthrough leaves a lot to be desired. And that's because there wasn't an epic endgame showdown between us and the rest of the enemies, which kind of ruined the whole point of encircling Hara Vera before we even fought the garrison at Hara Vera, but I tried. I did, however, enjoy the epilogue though, because the monologue was voice acted, and the narrator showed what happened with all of our allies at the end of the story. I'll give you points on creativity for that. However, my ending was also unfortunately bugged, and so in order to see the full ending, I had to watch Tef's video. I haven't seen the other ending yet, but I am still quite disappointed in how Hara Vera ended the first time. And for this reason, I'm putting 6 out of 10 for the story overall. And that is it from this one. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review of Flight to Hara Vera in a story format. Now, this video was based on my experience in Flight to Hara Vera, which, keep in mind, it was on an older patch with some bugs and glitches and stuff like that. But if you guys want to see another playthrough of Flight to Hara Vera, don't hesitate to comment down below, because if there's one thing I genuinely enjoy from YouTube, is seeing your guys' comments. So be sure to let me know. Alright? And if you want to see what happened in the playthrough of Flight to Hara Vera in more detail, here's the playlist. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.